Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I'm really happy to have today's guest, Cathy Baillargeon. And she's dubs herself as the Chief Cathy Officer, which we'll find out more about what that means. But she's going to talk to us all about, business, entrepreneurship, how to land clients, and shedding your employee mindset for bigger things, delegation, solopreneur to CEO. And I'm really happy to have guests such as Cathy on the show to add some spice to the traditional content. So, Cathy, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so one thing I'm very curious about is what is Chief Cathy Officer or Virtual Cathy? What is that?
So, Virtual Cathy is my US based virtual assisting agency, and we support hundreds of small business owners and nonprofit organizations across the country, as well as several other countries. And, it's just a play on words. Why be in business if you can't have a little bit of fun with it? My team of 20 VAs on my team, a lot of them, they like to dub themselves Cathys, right? Virtual Cathy, they're Cathys. So I am Chief Cathy Officer over my team.
Yeah, so and I love how if you can make it funny or, kind of create a play, it makes things more enjoyable as opposed to just, kind of dry and serious. Um, which brings us to this next question is this idea of because I love this how you named your assistant Cathy, and there's with GPTs and a lot of these AI bots now, it's going to really change things. So first theme I like to talk about is navigating the virtual shift, and with increasingly remote work, demand for virtual assistants has soared. And so, from your perspective, what are key factors driving this shift, and how has Virtual Cathy adapted its service to meet these evolving needs?
Virtual assisting, I see it as really a great alternative to just traditional employment, right? There's so many people who are working online nowadays where it does seem a little strange for them to have like a remote staff, remote business. They're not housing anybody, but ultimately that's kind of that's the name of the game these days, which is really nice. Keep overhead low. But ultimately, I found just in my own local business community that business owners were so inundated with admin tasks, and a lot of times they didn't even have even part-time work for somebody to that they could hire somebody, right? And usually with that traditional employment setting, you feel like you should probably hire somebody at least 25 hours per week. And so the great thing about virtual assisting is that it's a little bit more on demand, and it has more opportunities to get even daily support that you need without feeling like you have to really put your business profitability on the line by hiring somebody part-time or full-time. So you can hire somebody as low as 10 hours a month and still have some of that admin burden taken off your plate without feeling that number crunch of having so many hours and trying to have to come up with so many hours and so much work for that person to take on.
And I love this idea where in this idea, in this virtual world, people are looking for work, and this is kind of like VA. You can VA on the side and kind of add some side income, um, which in a lot of business owners, they could free up, if it frees up 10 hours to do bigger things where you can pitch, land a large contract or a large client that's, that would be money well worth spent. Which leads me to this next question is this shedding your employee mindset for bigger things, because a lot of the audience out there are so used to doing things themselves. They're just like, oh, I'll
Yes.
just do it. And then they can't delegate, and they don't trust, and it kind of limits them because they have to be micromanaging. It adds stress. So kind of talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the majority of people who get into business, they've most likely been an employee. And whether they liked that dynamic or not, may have something to do with the fact that they go into business for themselves, but it's really difficult for them to get out of that employee mindset where, like you said, they feel responsible for doing everything. And they have this mindset of like, well, if I can do it, I should be doing it. And then they just get completely inundated with the mundane and the daily work and the daily tasks. And it really hinders them from being able to grow and scale and focus on what, one, they love doing in their business, what really prompted them to start their business, but then two, like, what are they really good at that no one else can really do? I bet it's not admin work, right? I bet it's whatever service they're providing. And so getting to that place, there's definitely that shift that has to happen in order for somebody to grow and for their business to grow, where they're like, okay, if you're stepping into that CEO role, that means you do need to start delegating and you got to figure out what works best for you. And you need to shed some of that just regular stuff that somebody else can do. And it's tough because so many people are like, oh, I'm a business owner, and they kind of have some control issues. Let's just be honest, right?
That would be
But
me.
then if you really want to become the business owner and that CEO, you've got to let go and be able to delegate to people who's much better suited and fit to take care of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really this idea of just control and because a lot of physicians, like I said, they're just so used to doing everything themselves and we're perfectionists. So it's like if you can get the job done like 80% and you can pay like, 15 bucks an hour, saves you an hour, your hours worth probably, $400 or $500 per hour. You could use that to, do bigger, better things. So you just take it out of the cost of how much you're making per hour. So the next question is the follow-up question is this mastering the art of delegation, and you have this not so subtle art. And so share some insights in the common barriers entrepreneurs face when it comes to delegating tasks. What strategies do you recommend for overcoming these hurdles to enhance productivity and business growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Most business owners could attest that they have had these common excuses as to why they don't delegate, right? So, one common excuse could be, I could do it better, right? Or it's going to take me longer to train somebody than if I just did it myself. Or, there's no reason why I shouldn't do it. I have time in my day to do that, right? So
Yeah.
we're giving ourselves all of these excuses as to why we shouldn't be delegating. And the reasoning is, whether it's control, whether they feel like they can't afford it, whether, that they have to kind of figure that out, right? But ultimately, delegation is a skill set. It's not something that people are just inherently born with and they just know how to do, and they have such an easy time doing it. And they'll have to figure out what's going to work best for them when it comes to delegating. There's a lot of people out there that want to support your business in some way, whether that's admin, marketing, whatever. And so finding the best person that can really enhance your delegation skill set wherever it is, right, is going to be the best practice, right? So, for example, if you want somebody to um, you can hire and they kind of know exactly what they should be doing on a daily, and you just really need to like give them some limited verbal reminders, then you're probably going to pay a little bit more than if, let's say, you are the type of type A, already have written processes down, and you just want to hand them over this step-by-step guide and on how to do something that you've done, previously in your business. So what is the best fit for you? Because there's going to be somebody with that skill set, but you got to figure out what that skill set is. If you are looking for somebody who kind of has innately knows what they should be doing, but then you hire somebody who is ready for that step-by-step instruction, it's never going to work. And so figuring out where you're at with the delegation process, like, oh, I need somebody where I can verbally process something and they can take down the notes and they can create a process from it. Find that person. Or again, if you already have processes and documentation in place, find the person that has that reading comprehension level and they can just take what you have and just improve on it.
Yeah. So well said. And the other question I have is one of the common frustrations I have, me and my colleagues sometimes we're hanging out over like coffee or beer or, dinner, and they talk about this when they work with somebody. And it's kind of like they have this vision in mind and they work with somebody, and they talk about this thing where the assistant or the editor comes back to them with like a list of questions, and then they answer those questions and it's still not clear, and so there's more questions, so that back and forth kind of decreases the efficiency. What is your best piece of advice for situations like that? Is it the owner not communicating well, or is it the VA or the editor needs more training? What's going on there? Because that back and forth really eats into a lot of things.
That's a great question. It's going to really largely depend on how long their working relationship has been, right? So if they're new out of the gate, it should be pretty normal for them to ask more questions at the very beginning of things
Yeah.
and kind of feel out what those expectations are on both sides. But if it's just question after question after a lengthy time of working together, that can be quite an issue and probably something that definitely needs to be addressed. So, the best course of action for any question that a contractor, somebody that you hire to help you in whatever manner, is that any question that they ask of you, they should be documenting, right? Create on their end some kind of procedure manual so they have this documentation to look on based off of preference and whatever the case may be. So then they're not constantly asking questions as time goes on, because as somebody gets into that role longer, they should be able to get a little bit more proactive and do a little bit more research. There's people who are born with this kind of proactiveness and the resourcefulness where they can probably find a lot of what they're doing on Google, on YouTube, resources abound, right?
Yeah.
And then there's people who don't have that resourcefulness and they kind of lean onto the person that hired them to answer all the questions that they have. So ultimately, it's on the person who's been hired, it's on them really to be able to collect as much information as possible at one time so then they're not consistently bothering or taking the time up of their client. But it's also the client's responsibility for them to talk about their expectations and if they have more information that they need to give, to try and do that up front.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then maybe it's like kind of like time to move on or change because like I had a VA and editor 2 or 3 years ago, and it was like, you answer the question and you kind of be proactive in what they're thinking and you just put it, and then they came back with even more questions, and then so I switched to software now, AI software now, and it's a lot cheaper and it's more efficient, and get things get done. Which brings me to my next question is, where do you see this area of virtual assistant and AI? Is AI going to replace them? Are they going to coexist? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
That is a great question, and one that my industry specifically is, there's both sides. People are freaking out about it, other people are welcoming it with open arms, right? I believe that there's always going to be opportunities for humans to be supporting other people in business and wherever. I believe there's going to be just advancements in technology where there's some niches that it just may make way more fiscal sense to utilize an AI program versus somebody else, like the editing, for example, video editing or uh, whatever the case may be. However, and that's more like along the technology side of thing. However, there's so many other areas where people want either that human connection. So if virtual assistants are doing more on the customer service base, or they're kind of that gatekeeper between their client and their clients, it's really hard for AI to take that on without it feeling too robotic. Writing, copywriting, there's so many programs out there via EA where copywriters are feeling threatened or at risk for, losing their jobs. But ultimately, there's always going to be a human element that people are going to want. And as AI continues to increase, that distinction is just going to get more and more prevalent. And so there's always going to be people who are going to want more of that human touch, human element, human voice that AI can't provide.
That's interesting. And I've heard instances where there's agencies and kind of they like there's I'm sure such as there's agency and then they have their team of VAs and they kind of go and get the clients and the contracts and the projects and they kind of divvy it up with among the VAs. And also like they also know how to use AI so they can use their AI tools with the VAs and kind of make it very efficient. So
Absolutely. And we use the AI programs for some tasks specifically, which is only a benefit to our clients because as we are time-based, ultimately it just means that we'll have more time to do other tasks to take off their plate.
yeah, I love that. So, I love this question. And, we talked about AI, but what are some other trends, developments, that you think will shape the future of your industry? And what's your perspective on, your current state and where everything's going?
With the increase in virtual assistants becoming more mainstream, I would like to think that in the future, whether that's the near future or not, there would be some kind of standardization that comes with our industry. So, especially over the last 3 years, everybody and their mother wants to become a virtual assistant, and virtual assistant itself has become this huge umbrella term where anything that could be done remotely could potentially be construed as a virtual assistant, which makes things really blurry. So when somebody says, "Oh, I need to hire a virtual assistant," maybe not. We have no idea, right? Because there's so many things that could be categorized as that. So, even like a podcast editor, some people might be calling themselves virtual assistants or virtual VA editor, whereas that was its own role. I've had graphic designers call themselves graphic design virtual assistants. So it's just become kind of just this smorgasbord of all of these different types of jobs that are ultimately like freelancing or whatever. And so with the interest in working from home and the that parallels these you already have experience with admin, there's always going to be this question of quality, with really any kind of industry that kind of pops up and really grows as well as ours did. So hopefully that standardization comes into play. Like any industry, there's going to be people who really shine and stand out versus people who do not provide a great service. And so for us, we're always looking to, again, utilize programs and up-level the skill sets of our VAs to ensure that what skill set we have to offer our clients is applicable and we are able to do things efficiently and that they feel that the value that they receive from the VA that they have is well worth the cost of it. Yeah, that's my hope and goal though, is some kind of standardization to the industry.
Yeah. And how can people find out more about your work and your social media and your company?
Sure. Our website for people who are looking for virtual assistants is virtualcathy.com. That's Cathy with a C. And we also have an education branch for people who are interested in learning to become virtual assistants, which is virtualcathyacademy.com. And then you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, under your Virtual Cathy.
Yeah. And for all the audience out there, let's thank Cathy for coming on. Give her a like and follow on her social media. Check out her company website. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.